Hello, and welcome to another episode of Technically Something, the show where we talk about technology, creativity, tutorials, and gaming. I'm your host, Kevin Allen, and in this episode, I had a viewer send in a request for a tutorial to make images that look like this, and this, and maybe even a little bit of this. Now, all of these images, fortunately, were created by one person. This guy goes by the name of Matt Sharp, and if you want to check out more of his images, you can go to daringboy.com, and I'll have that link below as well. But this guy makes some really cool work, and he's been in the industry for a while, it seems, and honestly, I really love this type of design. And I think we can recreate it using a couple techniques that I've already covered, but I still want to do a step-by-step for you so that you can do it at home. Let's go ahead and get to it. I will see you in a sec. Step 1. Find your images. Go onto your web browser and search for images of your athlete. You're going to need two images, one for the background and an action shot. The background image should be fairly large, and your action shot can be about half the size. Next, you're going to find paint splatter, ink splatter, or flying paint. Make sure that the backgrounds are white so that you can remove the white later. Now, if you do come across images where the background has already been removed and it's saved as a PNG, you won't be able to copy and paste that into Photoshop while keeping the transparent background. So you'll need to save this and make sure to save it to a folder with everything else that you're using for that image. When you do this, you'll be able to go back to that folder and place this transparent background image as an embedded image into your Photoshop file. Lastly, you're going to find a background with a watercolored splatter or watercolor stained paper. Something that just sort of has that texture to it, and then you're going to make sure it's on the bottom underneath everything else. Once you've done that, you're ready for the next step. Watercolor background. This step's fairly easy. All we're going to do is use the Move tool to position our watercolor background where we would like it. I'm using the teal color, and I'm going to hit Ctrl-T to transform and resize this. Once I put it in position, I can also rotate it if I would like to put this at an angle, but that's completely up to you. Once you're finished, you hit Enter to commit those changes, and then we're going to make the next step, which is creating a mask. You can create a mask by clicking this icon, and when you see that white box, that means that you can use your brush to paint black over the areas that you want to mask or make disappear. This is a non-destructive way for you to edit and erase parts of an image that you don't want. Once you've touched that up, you're ready for the next step. Athlete background. For this step, you're going to take the larger image of your athlete and you're going to move them into position. If you need to shrink them, remember, you can hit Ctrl-T, transform them, and once you're finished, all you have to do is hit Enter to stop. Now, I'm going to drop the opacity of that layer to 30%. And the reason I do this is so that I can see the paint splatter underneath. With that paint splatter visible, I can move my athlete into a position that I think benefits the composition and works with that paint splatter a little bit better. I can see where I need to erase around the edges clearly. So I create a mask and I fade out all of the parts of the athlete image from the bottom. Remember to use a soft round brush so that this is a gradual removal of the image. And you'll notice at the top that I'm not going all the way in. That's because I want to cut out the edges of the shoulder and the helmet In order to do this, I'm going to use the pen tool, and this will draw a path around the edges of the figure. For the sake of time, I sped up this portion. If you've never used the pen tool, it's going to take a little bit of practice, but it is a point-to-point tool, meaning that you click from one point to the next. And you'll notice that I'm dragging out from each point. So when you click, hold, and drag, you can actually influence the line and add a curve wherever you would like. This is why I prefer to use the pen tool instead of, say, the lasso tool. It allows some more control. But again, it does take practice, but you don't have to use this. You could use the lasso tool if you would like. It fundamentally works the same way. Once you're finished creating your path, you're going to go to Paths, hold Control, and click on the thumbnail. Once you've done this, it'll turn your path into a selection. If we go back to the layers and select the mask, you can now paint black onto the selection and get rid of all of that background and keep that nice sharp edge. Go through and clean up any parts that are left over. After you've touched everything up, you are ready to move on to the next step. Color match the background to the jersey. Now, I'm going to create a black and white adjustment layer above my watercolor. This makes it go into a grayscale. If I add a solid color adjustment layer, I can use the eyedropper and select a part of the jersey, then click OK. Now if I drag the color layer above the black and white, I can change the blending mode to color. And that translates the colors that I chose to the black and white adjustment layer, making the paint the same color. Cut out the athlete action shot. This step is going to be identical to what I did cutting out the top of our background. I'm going to use the pen tool to create a path that goes around the entire player. Now, I got lucky with this shot because there's a lot going on, but as I looked at it, I thought it would look fine if I cut it out by itself. Again, I sped up the selection process simply for the sake of time. I've used the pen tool for a long time, so it makes sense to me. I do have other tutorials on how to use the pen tool. I believe it is the Hoax Photo tutorial, where I go over the same selecting method. But again, if you don't like using the pen tool, an alternative to this is using the lasso tool, which you can do freehand by using the regular lasso tool, or you can use the polygonal lasso tool, which goes point to point as well, but it doesn't allow you to curve the way that the pen tool does. You can only do straight lines. Both you can change the degree of feather to get softer edges, but the pen tool just gives me greater control, and I would heavily suggest practicing it if you aren't used to it. Now, we do the same thing as before. We're going to go over to the Path tab, and if that's not there, you can find it under the window menu at the top. Hold Control and click, and then create a mask. Now we have the action shot of our player, and it has those beautiful crisp edges. So position it where you would like, and then you are ready for the next step. Add paint and ink splatter. In this next step, you're going to be using the magic wand, selecting the white background of each layer for your paint splatter, and creating a mask. When you do, you'll have to hit Ctrl-I in order to reverse the mask so that the paint shows. Next, you're going to transform so that you can resize the paint down to the size that you want. Then you can move it into position, rotate it, squeeze, stretch, do whatever you need. Repeat this process for any of your paint layers that have a white background. You can also do the same thing for your PNGs just by transforming and placing them wherever you like. Once that's finished, you're ready to move on and create masks. Since we don't want paint covering all parts of the jersey, we can create a mask and then use a soft brush and paint black to gradually fade that out and make it look like it's coming out of the jersey in certain portions. Continue this process across all portions and layers of paint that you think need to be faded in. I repeated the process here on the leg as well, but I felt that the other portions spilling out the side didn't necessarily need to be masked in any way. Once you're finished masking, you're ready for the next step. Color match the paint splashes. Now that we've done all this, we're going to recreate the same thing we did for the background. We're going to create a black and white adjustment layer, anchor it to your paint, and I put all of my paint in one group to make this much easier. And then you can go to the adjustment layers and create a solid color. You could choose a color from here, but since I already had that same color, I just hold Alt, drag, and drop to duplicate that layer, and then anchor it holding Alt and clicking. And now you can see that all of the paint is the same color as the jersey. If you need to, you can go down and change colors, alter masks, and add other adjustment layers to change the paint colors in other portions of your image. Make sure that you go through and match the paint however you want it to appear. Once you're finished with that, you have the final product. And that about wraps it up, guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and ring the bell so that you are notified every single time a new video comes out. If you would like to see a tutorial for something that you're curious about, make sure to send me a comment, or you could even email me. You can also check in on my Facebook, which is facebook.com/technicallysomething. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'm Kevin Allen, and this was Technically Something. See you guys soon.